get started with the notes. So. All right. Okay. So we'll go Mr. Love, Mr. Burt. All right. So if I can have you two come back here, I'll go ahead and get them settled just real quick with our staff, and I'll be right back. You guys can come this way if you want. All right, I appreciate your patience. Mr. Love, would you have a seat? And then we are just going to start over with our commissioners that are over in the well over there. And we're just going to go around and ask some questions, kind of go commissioner by commissioner. And then, but we'll start and let you give a brief opening statement if you'd like.
Commissioners, thank you very much. I wasn't sure what the protocol was today, so I do have a copy of the line item budget in my pocket and my phone in the other pocket. I know you said they were going to sequester phones. I just want to make sure I'm not doing anything.
No, you're fine. It's mainly to just ensure that if you're a second person answering later in the meeting, that you don't have advance notice of any of the questions. So
awesome. Sounds great. Thank you. So I'm Taft Love, longtime Laramie County resident. Moved here in 1994 after graduating from the University of Wyoming. My wife and I took up residence in eastern Laramie County, started a small farm and ranch. At the time, I worked in field research for the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, and then moved into the Wyoming Division of Tourism, where I became their wildlife guy for about 4 or 5 years. Actually, the first time I met Mr. Hollingshead, he was a pretty junior officer at the time, and he would patrol through our visitor center out at the tourism department, and I'd be there working the front counter in the summertime. So that's how long ago that's been. I went on to raise our 3 kids in eastern Laramie County in an ag community, served on the Laramie County School District No. 2 Board of Trustees for 10 years, was appointed the first time and then served 2 consecutive terms afterwards. At that time, I was chairman after I was elected. We ushered in the 4-day week at that time as well, and watched what that did for eastern Laramie County. It doesn't fit every area. It would be a much bigger pull to try to do something like that here in Cheyenne. But I know Goshen County now has done the same thing, and I know I've been asked to come speak to other school districts around the state as well on it, because it really does fit our smaller rural districts. And so we saw a lot of student achievement increase. We saw some savings in budget. We were able to build some facilities without going back to the State Facilities Commission for money. It did a lot of great things for eastern Laramie County and LCSD too. After that, I was asked to take on the challenge of leading our Laramie County GOP. And that's quite interesting. At the time, we had, I think, 250 available seats. I think there were only probably 180 of them ever filled at any given time. But to go from a board of 9 in eastern Laramie County to a board of 180 was quite a special treat. And so, there's a lot of masters, so they say, in that kind of position. So I felt we had some great success in there. We had some great challenges. We had a lot of things to overcome. There was a lot to deal with in all of our community. And we were ultimately successful at what we set out to do, I think. So From there, I guess I'll leave my questions. I talked about my kids briefly. I still have one in elementary school. One is a junior at the University of Wyoming in accounting. The other one is a graduate of Eastern Laramie or Eastern Wyoming College out of Torrington. And he's working on the ranch in Goshen County. And my daughter has moved to central Nebraska. She'll still graduate from UW. And Olivia is still at home with us. So she's the one you see running around with me all over the place. But
Okay.
very good.
Thank you, Mr. Love. All right, Commissioner Thompson, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, Mr. Love, if appointed, who do you believe you represent first and foremost? The residents of District 6, the broader interest of Wyoming, your party, or specific industries? And how do you resolve conflicts among them?
So this truly has to come from a place of service, and I've been given a servant's heart, I believe. And my first is who I'm elected by. And so I must serve the people of Platte and Laramie County that elect us and or appoint us in this circumstance, and make sure we protect the interest of those communities, because I will be the elected representative for them at the state level. By and large, I also have to consider myself a representative of the state of Wyoming as I hold myself up in front of any committee anywhere in the state. But ultimately, I will represent those who would elect me in a general election.
And in the second part of that, how do you resolve conflicts among the different entities that you represent?
So, this is a pretty vast area, and as I break down and look at the different impacts that are going to be had, this is a pretty challenging redistricting problem, I think, that I'm sure is shared by other people, and I will seek them out to see how they help handle this. But we have two completely different counties with two completely different sets of resources. And Laramie County, though being quite large, if we just look at Eastern Laramie County, I see a community in Pine Bluff, Burns, Albin, Carpenter. Those communities are very similar to what I see in Chugwater and Wheatland and Glendo and Guernsey. And so I think it'll be pretty easy to represent them and stay very true to the ag-based rural community lifestyle that they are going to enjoy and expect. And so the difference in the two, though, and when I talk about resources, is Laramie County comes of a place where we have minerals and petroleum, we have other sources of income, and Platte County doesn't. So when we're talking about property tax, Platte County is going to probably be more sensitive to a property tax issue than Laramie County. And so we'll have to really weigh those and see where that comes out as we move forward. But by and large, I think we're hitting a point in the tax situation where it's going to be hard to apply a one size fits all. And so we may very well have to look at things that broaden our horizons a little bit, so we protect counties that don't have certain resources in Wyoming versus others.
Taft, I'm going to kind of continue on with that property tax thing real quick. Due to the shortfall that we had in Platte County, we cut our general fund by a substantial amount, had to. So what's another 25% look like to you if it went that way? And what influence would you have to help with that? Because the people that are hit the worst are the special districts, and this is our old folks, this is our fire districts. I don't have to tell you who they are. And they're the ones that are strictly funded from that. So that's the front half of my question. And the back half is, if you were appointed, would you run in the next election?
Very good. Commissioner, the challenge of a 25% further cut in our budget, I think as we take this process, we really need to look at what our solutions are for funding, especially for counties like Platte County. Laramie County recognized and felt the budget, and they stayed pretty flat in this last year's budget. I think I only saw like a $600,000 total increase in Laramie County's budget, which is pretty minor when you look at the overall budget for Laramie County. Platte County saw just a little bit of an uptick, but not much, but a huge reduction in, like you said, the general fund. 25% more means you start having to put faces to those dollars. That's what it looked like to me when I studied your budget earlier this week. So I think we have to think about health and human services and what our emergency response folks are going to look like, what it's going to look like as we go into. So you've got education, you've got your elderly facilities, you've got hospitals and emergency responders. And where can you afford to cut your budget? I know your sheriff's budget didn't go up very much. I looked at that, and I did, by the way, notice you have a resignation on your sheriff, so you're going to get to go through this process again really soon. That'll be another challenge for you. But the 25% could be just absolutely devastating to Platte County. And so Laramie County might be better equipped because of other funding sources to ride that out. Fortunately, both counties have a little bit of a carryover, and that carryover will help stabilize through these uncertain times. But I don't want to see us burn up our carryover either, because if you do, then you're kind of left to the whim of what, let's face it, sales tax was down this last time around as well. So if that trend continues, and most likely will, because people are feeling a little bit of a pinch on the economy in their households, and they're trying to save and be a little more frugal. We saw lower attendance at our summer events this year, less tourism. So I think we'll see that show up in the tourism side of things this year in the final numbers. So I would be very cautious to go into another 25% cut without seeing everything and how it's going to impact the counties and what our solutions are to funding essential resources in those counties.
Commissioner Zwanitzer.
Let's jump. First and foremost, thank you for being here today. We appreciate your willingness to step up. I know politics are kind of a thankless job, so thank you for being willing to be in the hot seat there for a little bit. So if you could, my question, if you could, can you name one measurable goal or achievement that you feel like you can accomplish in your first session that would benefit Senate District 6?
Well, since most of you have taken office for the first time in a new position, you'll know that it's a lot like drinking from the fire hose. I think one of the unique things that I think we're going to be presented with in this budget session is it will be, as we step back from federalization of our education system and the Campbell County decision that has been the overarching driver of funding in the state, and it puts a huge demand on the state's budget to fund education, we might find new opportunities for what equality looks like in education across the state of Wyoming. And we may be able to, as we form and develop a state education budget, we may be able to ensure a better education, which we did before 1979 when they formed the Department of Education at the federal level. We may be able to get more bang for our buck. And so the education, because I'm extremely familiar with it, I've got 10 years of that budgeting. I would like to dive into that with the other representatives and senators and figure out if there are opportunities as we step away from federalization of education and more of a state operated education system. If we have opportunity for savings and ultimately a better education for kids that is based on industry desires or needs for our students as graduates to be good employees that we can retain in Southeast Wyoming. So.
Commissioner Heath.
Thank you for your time this afternoon. Where would you draw the line between state preemption and local control on land use decisions? Give one example of each that you could support.
So give one of each for state control versus local control?
Yes.
So when I look at this, everybody's heard the 30,000 foot view. And that's kind of where I see state government. We're supposed to be this big 30,000 foot view. And as it comes down to the commissioners are much more engaged with their communities. The city council gets even more engaged, and there's cooperative discussion between those and the school board and the city. And as land use goes, it has to fit your community and the growth of your community. We have witnessed in Southeast Wyoming just an explosion in growth over the last 20, 25 years. I used to live, 12 miles out of town on a dirt road that was 7 miles long to get to my house. And today it's paved within a mile of my house. And so it's changed that much. I think the state government needs to provide the tools for which we have the opportunity to work inside of a framework. So we look at our big resources like water or Department of Environmental Quality for sewer and waste. Those type of things, mineral deposits, those things need to be considered at a state level and how those things are managed. And then we need to help fund research that allows us the tools at a local level. So the AMEC memo is something that we use a lot here in Southeast Wyoming for water and water rights and drilling wells and well spacings. That is a good document, but it's starting to get some age on it. And we've witnessed our aquifers here in Wyoming coming up in the last several years because I believe, hopefully in part because of that document and what it did for our water consumption and practices. And the county's been diligent in making sure they apply that the way they need to keep being successful. And so I think it's time to maybe revisit that study and have that company come back in and look at what we've done and maybe see if there's other opportunities to stop consuming ag land at a massive rate and give us new opportunities for growth that consumes less real estate so that we can keep Wyoming in an open space. And so that would be an example. I would say the state of Wyoming needs to help have the data and research provided through DEQ, the state engineer's office, and those organizations as to what land use is possible. And then I believe the commissioners and the local governments need to determine inside of that framework what best suits their communities and the use of that inside of their regulatory services. And then ultimately, both need to practice in upholding the landowner's rights as owners' rights moving through that process as well, because we have tons of arguments and a lot of people show up and they don't want to see you do this with your ground or that with your ground. And it can get pretty ugly from time to time. And so upholding private property rights is another huge thing that I believe our counties right now are doing very well at. And I think the state needs to make sure they protect that right in the 30,000 foot view. So hopefully that answers your question.
Any follow-ups? Any other questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Ian?
My question is kind of about the job description. What's your review of the legislature as it stands today, and what do you think their job should be? Follow up, how do you work? My personal opinion is the larger the committee gets, the harder it is to get anything done. You need to kind of have a special guy to push, or gal, to push something through and work with that many people. Frankly, not getting done at the state level. So what's your review of the legislature, and then how do you attack that monster to get anything meaningful done?
That again, in the first year in that position will be quite the challenge. Being able to be open and have conversations with anybody and everybody about the topics is going to be hugely important. Being able to decipher that information then and make sure that I have a network of our community members that I trust, that I can bounce these things off of to make sure they're best suited for our communities. Those would be just a few things that I would do to make sure that I am prepared to deal with the legislature as it goes forward. The legislature right now, unfortunately, much as I see party politics, is divided and fractured. I see a lot of polarization inside of that, and I see the unwillingness to agree to disagree on things from time to time. And I think we need to get more back to that in our lives and in our negotiations. And we each have things we want to do, but ultimately we need to make sure we do what's best for the people we're there in service of. And if that means we make one step forward instead of going across the goal line, we take that step forward because it's something we can all agree on. And so that would be my approach to how I would look at legislative decisions in this first round and make sure that they fit what our communities need.
Thank you. I'd ask something about property rights, but I believe that it'll be taken care of in other segments.
Chairman Shockley?
Thank you, Chairman Mel. Mr. Love, thanks for being here today. I have a few questions on property taxes that I'd like to ask. They're pretty short and simple, but I'm assuming that you're a property owner. Can you explain how your property taxes are calculated?
So in Laramie County, I believe we're a 76 mil. And for every $100,000, if you go off the 4%, I believe that it is, we use to get to our evaluation of $100,000, 95,000 is there. You take that times the 0.076 and you end up with $742 in property tax for every 100,000. So roughly that's how my Laramie County property tax is assessed. I understand the mills in Platte County are a little different. I haven't run that math in my head before, sorry.
Yeah, each tax district is a little different on the actual mill levy. So how much is an actual 1 mil?
So 1 mil is $1 per 1,000.
And then you said your tax district was 67 mils?
76.
76, okay. How much of that goes to us as county governments?
I can't remember the percentage off the top of my head. It's a pretty good percentage of that. But then it's obligated to different things inside of the budget. So it's not just yours to do with willy-nilly as you want. So each thing has its own mill, like the police and fire departments have a mill. There are different things broken out inside of that. So, but I can't give you an exact percentage. I don't remember right off the top of my head.
Yeah, actually counties get 12 mils out of, like in my district, it's 68.5. So the county gets 12.
Well, okay.
Which
very good.
equates to about 16 to 18%.
Okay.
So it's a fairly small amount. So thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hollingshead?
You bet. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Love, my question is, what are the top 3 reasons young Wyomingites leave, and what is your policy and or plan to tackle each?
So this has been the question for as long as I've lived. How do we retain our children in Southeast Wyoming and Wyoming, period? And the idea is that we need growth in order to have jobs to retain our kids. We need to find ways to help make legacy ranches survive from generation to generation so the kids have a way to stay on the ranch. We need a way, and the only way to do this is to find good businesses. Like I used an example the other day, a great business for Wyoming is Eagle Claw. They just moved into Cheyenne. That is it's a Wyoming type company. It's something that most everybody in Wyoming could get behind. We all like fishing. Sheridan, Wyoming just took on Weatherby. Weatherby's another great example of a very Wyoming type company that can come in and give our kids a place to stay. We understand that technology is coming in. We have Meta and Microsoft moving into Cheyenne. I hear they're bringing a lot of people with them. I hope that they will look inside of Wyoming and Wyoming graduates to help fill some of those positions. And I hope we're having those conversations with them as they move in. The military is a huge employer. State is a huge employer. Those things are, so being cautious about the businesses we recruit to Wyoming and making sure we have the right type of business that's not just going to consume our values is going to be hugely important in making sure we're successful. But we have to have growth in order to retain our children.
Okay, a follow-up to that is we have the growth, we have the people that hopefully are staying here. What are we going to do to house them with the current housing market and the climate with interest rates and things? What can we do through your position that you're striving for to maybe help alleviate that?
So I think looking at legislation that will allow for special sewer and water districts in Wyoming, that will allow you to go to smaller acreages with centralized well locations and cisterns that will support multi-families instead of 5.25 acres per home. I think those are opportunities that can be generated through the state legislative process that then the county will be able to help dictate how their communities can grow. And so if we look at Laramie County and we say a 5-acre lot's worth $150,000, well, if you can split that into 5 and make that lot worth $40,000, you just knocked $110,000 off the cost of your house. So now you've got a much more affordable product for somebody to move in and live in. And so those are the opportunities that I think we could help with the state level to make sure the counties have the tools and the resources to be successful inside of their communities.
Okay. All right. I just have a couple quick ones. Do you support more options for local governments to have voter approved sales tax options for their community?
You know, the 6 penny here in Laramie County has done great things for Laramie County over the years. And I think that is a good opportunity, and it gives the citizens the opportunity to help decide what they want and what they don't want and what they're willing to spend their money on. And so I would be in support of that.
Okay. And then we've talked a lot about, retaining youth, attracting business, growth, all of those things. But I think a major component that we see missing there's 2 real major components we see missing in a lot of our communities, especially more rural Wyoming and Senate District 6 in particular, is probably childcare and what we can do to provide more childcare accessibility, and then as well as rural healthcare and how that works in further diminishing kind of community size with higher costs for those services. Do you have any thoughts or ideas on either changes to the childcare or healthcare industries?
I think some changes there could be made. I know as we moved to the 4-day week, one of the biggest pushbacks we had from our community was, what do we do with our kids on Friday? We still have to work weeks 5 days. And what happened is we watched our communities evolve, and we had childcare services pop up in the old school at Burns and a couple other locations in Pine Bluff, and high school kids started babysitting instead of, and so there are ways to work with your community to help that grow. But inside of the framework of the healthcare and child safety, there you would need to make sure the state was being responsible with its requirements so that you were able to allow that to happen in your communities. And sometimes that gets girdered, I think, by the current state laws. We have huge issues, I'm sure, and I know Platte County's the same way. It's 45 minutes to Albin for services. If something happens and you have to get somebody there from Cheyenne, you're 45 minutes away. And so most big incidences that would happen inside of a school system are done in 7 to 9 minutes. And so you're still 30 minutes, 40 minutes from having any services show up for that. So that's a huge thing that we need to tackle in Wyoming. And we've looked at a lot of different opportunities for that through the school districts. And so I do think there's opportunities to create legislation that will allow for the communities to have more services.
And then finally, I guess, what is your view on state imposed mandates to local governments? By and large, these are unfunded mandates where the state comes up with a rule, says you guys will follow this, and gives no resources for a local government to implement or exercise the new requirements.
So, perfect example of this right now, I think it makes the news pretty regular is the ICE in certain towns and locations. ICE is there trying to do immigration enforcement. Local law enforcement is doing what they can to help. But right now, local law enforcement and the federal agencies work together as they can, and local law enforcement can still accomplish what they need to for their communities. Whereas if an unfunded mandate forces them to deploy resources to help another agency without any funding support or personnel support, you will start seeing a lack of presence in your communities, and their communities will start to suffer from it. And so I think we have to be very cautious about unfunded mandates to our cities, towns, and counties.
Does anyone else have any additional questions? Ian? Yep.
So one of the things that crosses my mind all the time is when we're talking about property rights, everybody thinks they know what property rights. What are our property rights?
So inside of the framework of our laws, property owners are able to do about anything they want with their property as long as it does not cross the boundaries of the state engineer's office, Department of Environmental Quality, some wildlife infractions or other. So it's the major things held in common good for the citizens of Wyoming, and the state has agencies that represent those things. As long as they operate inside of that framework, property owners are able to do whatever they need to with their property to be profitable and grow and prosper in Wyoming. So that's the way I see property ownership, property rights, and the way that responsibility is handled.
Thank you.
So,
Mr. Chair, I do have a
Okay.
follow-up question. You mentioned in your comments about land use regs, you mentioned the AMAC memo and that it needs to be revisited. How would you propose that that study be funded? We have done some preliminary estimation that it would cost us about $20 million. How would you propose that we fund that?
I believe that anything that has to do with that should come directly through the state engineer's office. That way the state can have policy on it. They can support that data and information and then disseminate it to the areas of Wyoming that is needed. So I would say that should be a state funded project.
Thank you.
okay. Anyone have any additional questions? Comments? Okay, Mr. Love, you have final statement or final questions?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. I did miss Jeb's last question, and yes, I will run again if I'm appointed. So very good. I think I got the rest of them. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate your willingness to listen and ask the questions today. I look forward to an opportunity to visit with all of you regardless of how today goes. I want to help our communities grow. I have definitely been given a servant's heart, and I've proven that in a dozen years of service. And so I would still like to help our communities in any way possible. So thank you very much for your time. I will work diligently and be present in your communities and make sure that everybody is represented if I am given this opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Love. All right, and you're welcome to stay since you've heard all the questions, or you can hang out in the back. It's up to you, but I'll go get the next applicant. All right, good afternoon, Mr. Burt. So we will start and we'll just have you feel free to sit down if you'd like, or you can stand, whatever you're more comfortable with, but give you a chance to introduce yourself to the commission, multiple commissions, and have an opening statement if you'd like, and then we just have some questions for you.
Thank you. Thank you all. My name is Roy Burt. I've lived in Southeast Wyoming all my life. Born and raised in Cheyenne, and have a lot of nice, good memories of ties in with my relatives in Pine Bluffs and Albin, Burns area. My uncle was chief of police / sheriff down there, and I got to hear some of the old stories that reminded me of Mayberry, and I just come in here talking to you all. I don't have an agenda. I'm not representing anyone. Although given my age, some would say that I'm lobbying for AARP or AMAC or something, but I'm just glad to be here. And you can look at my letter of interest. I'm interested in people. I put down who is important to me on my letter of interest: my wife and my 3 sons. And I was able to go to work for 31 years at UPS. It was a good job. I was going to school at LCCC and met a sweet girl, and I said, I want to provide for her. And so I built up and edified her so that she could be my wife and take a class and then have a kid and take a wife, go on and take a job and eventually be a teacher. But that is part of my life, is edifying people at wherever I'm at. You notice that my church background, that I've worked with youth and people in Cheyenne and prior to us moving up to Wheatland in church leadership. So I've been able to retire at a young age and be through financial planning and responsibility. I've been able to give generously at the same time, but that was my goal, to retire early and to see what was happening as far as God's economy in my life. When I retired, people said, well, what are you going to do? What do you do? Well, a lot of things happened. The passing of my father-in-law, the passing of my mother-in-law, it was reverse order, but I was able to support my wife through that. They lived here in Cheyenne, and then my mother just passed away about 2 years ago, and I am the closest sibling by far. There's 4 of us. I'm the closest sibling by far. Close enough. That doesn't make sense, but by far I'm the closest citizen, or closest person to take care of my mama. So I was down here quite often. I think that's enough of my background. I'm proud to have worked in the private sector for 31 years. I'm proud to that my father and his wife had a private sector business, and I was able to help them in my younger years. They even offered for me to take that position in Laramie as with the flower shop and greenhouses, and I was going pretty good with UPS, and decided that that was the way to go to provide for my family and give them a safe environment. So as you can tell, family values are pretty important to me.
Thank you, Mr. Burt. So we're just going to go ahead and start with some questions. We'll just go around the room. Last time we started with Commissioner Thompson, so this time we will start with Commissioner Hollingshead and go the opposite direction.
Yes, sir.
welcome. I'll ask you one of the same questions I asked Mr. Love. What are the 3 top reasons young Wyomingites leave, and what are your policy plans to tackle each?
Okay. Jobs. They leave because job opportunities, okay? And these kids these days, they need to have something to do all the time, okay? That's activities, okay? But as far as jobs are concerned, when I think of that, I think of offering career opportunities for our kids, okay? Letting them know that that there are career opportunities for them right out of high school. There are almost out of high school, as far as welding is concerned, that there are career opportunities, not just jobs. That I would encourage them to know that you can make a living. 2 of our boys were, for the most part, self-sufficient just a couple of months out of high school. And I can elaborate on that later. But so I want to go on about jobs. And of course, we have our university in Laramie, and I would love to see them even emphasize more agricultural education and engineering. You know, UW used to be known for a pretty good engineering department, and I still think they have one, but it hasn't been emphasized, okay? You look up here on the ceiling, and on our state seal is a miner and a farmer, okay? So I covered those bases that we need, and my belief is that we need to use our energy resources, drill baby drill, if I could borrow that phrase, for energy development, and let these kids know that there is a career available in something other than sitting behind a phone and a computer. As far as things to do and getting kids to stay here, we have to offer activities, okay? And we're in big competition against Northern Colorado. And there's no doubt about it. But we could push our way of living here. We have in Senate District 6, we have a difference between the counties. You know, you have more of a metropolitan look and flavor. Up in Platte County, Wheatland, we have a recreation and agriculture, hard work situation. But we have kids coming out of high school with absolutely no idea what they want to do. For instance, I talked to heard that there's of course, there's a shortage of law enforcement people in Platte County. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, these kids need to know that they can become a dispatcher in a couple years, that, yeah, they might be making $18 an hour, the same as at a convenience store, but that $18 an hour comes with benefits and retirement. And if they're thinking right, not to say that I was thinking right, but that dumb luck, you might say, they could retire at an early age, okay, and go on to another career. And a third reason, let's see. I want to make sure I had the question right. Mr. Hollingsworth, could you repeat it, please?
Sure. What are the top 3 reasons young Wyomingites leave, and what are your policy plans to tackle each?
Okay. So the third reason would be, I think we could even get a stronger emphasis on technical schools, Okay. My father, he was head of the, head of a department at Wyoming Tech years back. And they used to do so much recruiting in Illinois. That's where at least half of their students came from. And we're finally getting it through to kids' heads around here that want places like Wyoming Tech and hopefully another technical school can pop up. Maybe we should have Jim Mathis open up another technical school. But I think that a technical school where kids can learn like HVAC, plumbing, apprenticeships, that they can get out and they can earn money right now instead of just going to school for 4, 5, 6 years like everyone else.
Okay. I have one follow-up question with that. You were emphasizing jobs. Where are we going to house these people, these kids that are coming out of their parents' homes? What legislation can you put forward as in your capacity as a Senate to make it more affordable? Currently, we're looking at $1,100 for rent. A kid coming out of high school, he can't afford $1,100 or she can't afford $1,100. So what can you do as a senator to help with that?
Well, I believe that we could let our apprenticeship programs know of the need of these kids for housing. I know that there's a large market for them. There'll be a large demand for these workers that work with their hands. And we need to let them know that this is the future. A lot of the old guys and gals are passing on, retiring, and that we could boost that wage a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman Shockley.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. Glad to see you here today. I have a couple questions about property tax, since there's been a real interest in the legislature to reform the property tax system. I'm assuming you're a property owner.
Yes.
How are your property taxes calculated? How are your property taxes calculated?
Or my property taxes calculated by an assessment on my property, land and house.
Can you tell me what a mill is?
A mill level, it's a minute part of a dollar.
Do you know how many mills that are currently assessed in your particular tax district?
I'm sorry.
Do you know how many mills are assessed in your current tax district where your property is located?
If I had to guess, I would say 7.
And then
That is a guess.
what proportion of that would come to counties for our general fund purposes to run the county?
Well, most of the property tax goes to the schools. Okay. So we're working with a dichotomy here in SD6 between Laramie County, who's doing okay, and Platte County, who needs help. Okay. And I've been thrown with the bus of responsible spending by the government. And how responsible can you be? I mean, you can only be so responsible. And then it's like then the county road and bridge department morale just goes low or even lower. And then we have trouble keeping people employed.
Thank you.
Ian.
So, Mr. Shockley, I'm not born with all the answers, so just know that I'm willing to learn.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Certainly.
So in light of Platte County's financial situation, are you in favor of a further reduction of property tax, and will you pursue one as a senator?
No, I am not. I am not. I just don't want to see grandma and grandpa lose their house to property taxes, okay? So I am not in favor of any more than the 25% that was done.
Thank you.
Ian?
So my question is about property, right? What are property rights?
Okay.
Can you hear, you can't hear me?
Not quite.
Oh.
Right.
What are property rights to you?
Property rights, in the Republican platform, when we run as a candidate, it says right there, property rights. And I could look it up, but I'm not going to, because you want my answer, not that. Property rights are, that's my property. Okay. Mineral rights, well, that's another thing, but property rights, where are we without property rights, especially in Wyoming? And what I want to stress though, and I hope this is taken right, is that we need to all be good neighbors. Okay. For instance, when I planted trees around my property, I didn't plant them right on the property line. I came back 6 feet, 8 feet. Okay. Out of respect for whoever it is that has my, is my neighbor. Okay. And I would love to see places around town cleaned up, but it's their property, darn it. And we have to respect that.
I've got to follow up on that. So there's an intersection between the state through regulation or agency or whatever and property rights and businesses. Those come to a crossroads at some point. Where do you see, or what role do you think the state plays in deciding property use?
Well, I've always been an advocate of local use. Okay. Local control. Okay. I hate to use the word local control, but local government, school boards, chamber, county commissioners, zoning boards, they are the law and we need to follow that law. They don't have, it doesn't matter anyone's opinion about any project. These people have to follow the law that is written there.
Thank you.
Commissioner Heath?
Oh, you kind of stole my thunder on the question that I was going to ask, so I'm going to find another one. That's all right. Hey, that's what we're here for. When you are faced with making a decision, what process do you go through?
What process do I go through? Okay. I am responsible ultimately to my God. I am an evangelical Christian. Okay. I am. That may not go very far with some of you, but I am. Then if I were in the Senate, I would go by the US and state constitutions. Okay. And then the constituents of SD6. Now, the constituents of SD6 are some of my good friends. I know a lot of people. I do. I don't mean to, I don't mean to brag about that, but, and a lot of people will hold me accountable. People at church, people at Western Skies, people that I see on the streets, that I am very approachable. So I feel like I have a lot of people to be held accountable to, but most of all, the top priority is my faith.
Thank you.
Commissioner Zwanitzer?
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you again for stepping up. I know it's a thankless job, so thank you for putting yourself in the limelight. I just kind of wanted to do a follow-up on that question a little bit. So when party leadership pressures you to vote against the interests of your district, what's your framework there? And then how will you commit to explaining those decisions publicly?
That's great. That's
Right.
great. I have a reputation of being honest and having integrity. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up to people and say, hey, this didn't go quite our way. You're going to, my constituents, I might say, hey, we're going to agree on 85, 90, 95, hopefully % of everything that we do. And you guys and gals are running into the same thing, you know, and that 10% is like calling you up and letting you know. But I think by explaining the situation and being honest with people and saying, this is where we're at, you know, I know your interest, this is where we're at, but I have to vote this way. Is that cool?
Yeah, it answers my question. Thank you. So, so my actual question there. So, just kind of what kind of financial experience do you have? And then how do you plan to use that to help with this budget session? Because as you know, the supplemental budget did not get passed by the Senate last year. So
It is a budget session. And sometimes I think we all wonder if we could just feel like we'd be good if we could just slap the senators upside the head or something here to get a little better results. But Mr. Zwanitzer, I was able to retire when I was 50, okay? Because of conservative living, not living beyond my means. Both my wife and I came from that background, grew up on the same street, by the way, here in Buffalo Ridge. But, you know, it was a goal of mine to retire early, okay? We don't have a boat. Our vehicles still have 4 tires, good tires, on each of them. But we were able to, at the same time, give generously to causes that we felt were important to us, and that goes to our faith. But so you're right that I don't have much accounting. I took it in high school. I took it in college at LCCC, but I can read a ledger. Okay.
cool. Easy enough. And then just to be fair, give you the same question that I gave. Can you name one measurable goal or promise that you feel like you can accomplish within your time in the session if you were awarded?
You know, I would love to. It's a budget session, so it's
Right.
only 1 year. You know, if you select me, you're only stuck with me for 1 year. So my big issue, and it's not gonna, I don't think we're gonna get anything out of it this year, is election integrity. Okay, it's gonna be tough to push anything besides the budget. And I have been looking at the budget, by the way, a little bit. I have a copy of the Craig report, CREG, revenue forecast, okay? It's a forecast, not a speculation, okay, if you will. And you look at the LISRA, which doesn't mean much to me yet, but I know that 1/3 of our budget comes from the rainy day, the interest on the rainy day fund. And we can't ever touch that rainy day fund without constitutional action. Okay. But the Craig report, I would love Craig revenue forecast. I would love to see it. And there's talk of it becoming an open such that we have the money we gotten the money from 1 years previous, and we know that we have this pot, okay? We can't spend more than this pot. Rather than speculation, and it's like, oh, you know, this forecast, we have this pot that our counties know they can work with, or we're going to have to work with. That would be a big emphasis for me
Measure vote no. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Baker.
Roy, thanks for coming down today, stepping up to, this deal, but I've got just kind of one question in a couple of parts.
Yep.
Oh, I got like one question in a couple of parts. In your professional adult life, how many budgets have you been involved in, whether it be, something that had tax money, whether it was a private company, whether it's your church, whatever it happened to be, what was your involvement in those budgets? And, the backside of that is, what is the one thing that you feel qualifies you for this seat?
Okay. Jeb, of course you have your personal expenses and accounts. And before I retired, I took the checkbook and I showed my wife. I said, we can do this. This is what my pension will pay. My wife's name is Mary Jo. Mary Jo, do you feel like working still? She says, yeah. And it wasn't a big deal. We could still swing it. We could move or something. We still had a kid in college up in Rapid City that we were supporting, but we were debt free. Okay. So that's personal. Okay. But what I'm talking about now is at our church. Every year we have a budget to go through. Okay. And we're not talking millions of dollars. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's a budget. Every October we do it, and I kind of like it. I like seeing the budget and how much our power bill is going to go up, how much utilities, what are we going to do for compensation for our pastors, and then even more intricately is I'm talking in a way, I'm bringing up points that you all might not think about. Okay. I'm bringing up points that I can't sit here and tell you that I was a CEO of a large corporation or anything like that. Is that what you want? I don't know. But do you want someone that, and I'm getting to the second part of your question, Jeb, I'm sorry, but I was on the mission board at our church, the head of the mission board, and we sent thousands of dollars every month to 10 to 11 missionaries in India, in Nebraska, in London. I'm very proud of our church for doing that. But I oversaw that, and we never, our church, as long as I've been on the board, our current church all three of them, the Alliance Church, the Wheatland Memorial Baptist, and the Alliance Church, or Wheatland Bible, we've never been over budget. We've never had to cut back on anything. But Jeb, the second part of your question is that I'm a personable guy, and if you look at just for stinking the precinct committee person in 1-1 of Platte County, I got well over 500 votes. My name was on the ballot out of something like a 1,000-person voting precinct. I mean, who would take the time to vote for that? And I'm honored by that. But I can go anywhere in town and run into someone. That's why I'm not afraid to walk into a restaurant or a theater or a venue alone, because I'll always have a friend, or I'll always make a friend. Am I all right with that, Jeb, or do you want further question on that?
Well, whether you're all right with it or not, that's your opinion. I'm just throwing a question out there.
Sometimes my wife thinks that, but
Commissioner Baker, anything else?
No.
Commissioner Thompson.
So, Mr. Burt, you mentioned election integrity is one of your priorities, specific to Platte and Laramie County. So you mentioned election integrity is one of your priorities. Specific to Platte and Laramie County, do you believe our elections are safe? Why or why not? And what would you do as a senator to improve the security of our elections?
Well, I think we've gone beyond the tinfoil hats, and we know that there could be problems with our elections, could be in the future. Okay, in the future.
So specific to Laramie and Platte County, do you believe our elections are safe? Why or why not?
I believe they are safe right now, but I would love to be, I'm a proactive person. So I would love to see more stopgaps there. Okay. I would love to see more election integrity so that what happened in Weston County in the general election 2024 never happens in this state again. Now, in Laramie County, I will tell you that we have granddaughters down here that play athletics, and we were, it was about a year ago that we were driving through here in between games at Cheyenne Central, and I drove by this building, and it was a day or two before the election. Well, it couldn't have been two, but and I saw people wrapped around the building in a line. And I'm sitting there thinking, what in the world? I'm from Wheatland. A long line is 3 or 4 people, okay? And we got to brag on Malcolm that I think our county clerk here, he does a great job with our elections. But I don't want to leave anything up to chance, Mr. Thompson. So, but what I was talking, what I want to go back to the people lined around the block. It's like, what is going on here? And then it's like, these people, wow, God bless them. They take this seriously. They take this seriously. So why can't we? So why can't the upper level, our government leadership, why can't we take it even a step higher? Okay. Step it up, as they say. Not give us the, well, we can't, or, well, yeah, you know, we can't. But let's look into something that that will earn the trust of the voters of ST6, Platte County, Laramie County.
So to follow up, how would you recommend that the election officials, the two that are sitting in this room, take it more seriously?
They're professionals, okay? That they be open to guidance, okay? Am I one that wants hand counting? Yes. I do believe that it can happen, and that we can do it in an expedient matter, okay? I don't want to sacrifice the convenience for being the first precinct or the first county in the state to have results if they aren't any good. Okay. So if that means that we don't get our election results till midnight, that's what it means. Okay. I desire complete and honest elections, and so that no one that's lined up around the block is in doubt or just blows it off.
So trying to follow you. So you believe currently that our elections are safe. You believe they would be made safer by hand counting?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to see that, Mr. Thompson. I want to take every measure I can to make the public feel like their vote counts. And our voting up there in Platte County, thanks to Malcolm and so many others that work that system up there during the elections, it's a wonderful experience. I've worked that for probably 10 years now, and it's wonderful to see all the people come in and, you know, you wave, and in this big building, the Agriplex, and to see people come in, and our voting percentage, the percentage of voters is pretty high. I'm pretty proud of that.
Commissioner Thompson, anything else?
You know how many people live in Laramie County?
How many people live in Laramie County as a whole?
Yeah.
I would guess probably a little over 100,000. Am I right? Or
Good guess.
kind of?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
About there.
I told my brother-in-law this. He lived here a long time ago, him and my sister, and he said, well, they were here this summer, and he said, how many people live in Cheyenne? I said, well, 100,000. He says, no. He looked it up. He says, this, the almighty cell phone says 60 people, 60,000. I said, no, let's count. Let's count Burns and Pine Bluffs. How far away are they? Pine Bluffs is 40 minutes away. Where do you live? When you go somewhere, do you tell them I live in Albin, or do you tell them, well, I live in Cheyenne? Thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioner Thompson? Okay, I just have a couple quick ones for you. So do you support giving counties more authority when it comes to, and more options when it comes to optional sales tax? So I know here in Laramie County, our voters, voter approved optional sales taxes. Our voters here have for over 30 years approved both 5th and 6th pennies. I think Platte County has at least one, if not both of those as well, at the voters' direction. Do you believe in those taxes? And do you believe in more opportunities for local governments to choose their own destiny with taxation?
So if I'm correct in saying this, is it Teton County in Jackson that has 7% tax? Am I correct in that?
Actually, I think, I don't believe any county has used all 7 at one time. Goshen County has a 7th, but they do not have a 6th. I think there's only 3 counties that don't have a 5th. And then there's a handful that have utilized both the 5th and 6th.
Okay.
Quarter of a cent. Yeah.
I am a conservative. I'm a fiscal conservative, but we've got to have services. We've got to have, like I say, morale for our employees. My stepfather was head of the county road and bridge department for Laramie County, and he worked with, he used to be the county engineer, Bob Whitney, for a long time. And don't tell anybody, but I rode around with my stepfather in his Laramie County road and bridge department truck in the early 70s as a teenager, early teenager. And we drove around all the roads. We've got to have good morale with our employees, and we've got to have good equipment. I am all about morale, okay, and keeping. If we lose somebody, I keep talking about road and bridge. How much does it cost to replace that person? How much does it cost? We aren't thinking about that. A lot of people don't think about that. I'm sorry. But how much does it cost in safety training? And okay, this is how you work a scraper. This is how you work a road grader and a dump truck. Okay. Instead of having somebody that's been experienced and is counting on this job for another 20 years, and then they can walk away in their retirement.
I'm going to instruct the county attorney to not notify Warm that we had a non-county employee riding around in a county vehicle. Even though it's been some time, we're going to go ahead and just err on the side of caution that there's not a statute of limitations on that.
I was a minor.
That's even worse. Shh, back up. No, thank you, Mr. Barrett. And then one final question. So what 3 industries, aside from our legacy industries of obviously agricultural and mineral production, do you see as Wyoming's future in terms of broadening our economy and helping to cultivate our workforce and keep people here over the next couple of decades?
Okay. I might be saying something wrong here, but I like where AI is at, but man, I think we've had enough of it. And it takes a lot of water to run AI, okay? And since I was a kid, they've been talking about the Ogallala aquifer, being in trouble. It's a huge aquifer, stretches from South Dakota, eastern Wyoming, down to Texas and New Mexico. But we got to, right here in Laramie County, we got to worry about water. I mean, we can't all get it from Rob Roy, okay? So I would love to see some manufacturing, some light manufacturing. For instance, in Lingle, Wyoming, there's a agricultural equipment company called Schlegel Manufacturing. It's a farmer. It's a farmer that said, "Hey, I have a better way. I have a better way of manufacturing this." Okay. So why can't we do something like that? You look at Leeds. Is Leeds still around down here? Okay. And they used to have incubator out at LCCC. Is that still the case or not?
So there's a different program now through the state. And I guess that would be my question, kind of to bring it around is what specific state policies do you think could help in this sector?
Okay. Well, we're talking about jobs, okay? And a lot of this is employment and good jobs for us. I can't be specific in anything that I say, but on the other hand, I would love to see educational help for the trade schools, kids going into the trade schools. I would love to see something like the Hathaway or the Hathaway be available to somebody like at Wyoming Tech, so that we have the people that can go to school, that we have the job force ready to go to work. I would love to see in Platte County more light manufacturing. We're on the verge of losing someone that's been there for 25 years, a company, and it's tough. But we've lost them, thankfully, kinda to Sheridan. So we got to realize that all of our municipalities and counties are competing for more jobs. And I don't think it's a good thing that all the jobs, all the employment, all the good high-paying jobs are in one specific region.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to close up with Mr. Burt before we let him have a closing remarks? Okay, you're welcome to, Commissioner Zwanitzer.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Hey, just a quick question. Would you be willing to fund at a state level to help with those local elections or bring some kind of a legislation? So counting, I'm all for it, but it's very, very costly. So it comes with a great cost. Would you be willing to do something on the state level to help assist local communities with that?
Well, Mr. Zwanitzer, we have to realize how much we're paying for those machines that we have right now. We're paying a lot for those machines. And it wouldn't take that many extra people to hire for a day, 2 days training. So it would be 4 or 5 days total every 2 years for each election. Okay. But let's on the other hand, let's remember that it is a budget session. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
Anyone else?
Are we done?
If you're welcome to give any closing remarks you want, Mr. Burt.
Well, my resume is not of a CEO or anything like that, but it's a resume of relationships that I've had, and I know people, like I've said, and I've repeated. I'm sorry, but I can walk up to people and relate to them throughout the county. And last thing, could you order me a stretcher to haul me out of here.
Thank you, Mr. Burt. You're free to hang out here in the room. And now that you've heard the questions, no need. And we can actually, and if you want, you can go grab your cell phone when I go back and get Mr. Burns. Barnes, sorry. Yep.
We're getting started. Chairman, so I can hand out the pack. Chairman Baker for the rest, so next. Oh, okay. We're like reading, we're just keep you up tonight.
Thank you very much. Oh, thanks, sure.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll give Commissioner Baker just a minute to get back from the restroom, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, Mr. Barnes, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and start, and you can just give kind of an opening introduction of yourself and anything you want to say, and then we'll go around and we have just some questions. We'll go around the room and have a list and answer them the best you can, and then we'll give you a chance to close at the end.
Mr. Chairman, this is on, correct? Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, along with the other commissioners, for taking time out of your day, allowing us to be able to present our answers to your questions. This is a tremendous opportunity for me, and I feel tremendously blessed to be one of the top three. My name's Jeff Barnes, live in Cheyenne for almost 9 years now, but we've been coming out here for over 20 years with friends of ours that are originally from St. Louis, with the FBI, hanging out with them. So I guess I've been out here for almost 29 years, give or take. I retired as a police commander out of St. Louis Police Department. With that, I held positions of Commander of Operational Planning and Emergency Management. That was my last assignment, selected by the Chief of Police. What I did is I coordinated with federal, state, and local agencies to handle every detail, every event, every dignitary that came into town, and also emergency management operations whenever we had such. But at the age of 18, I joined the Air Force, and I decided to do that to serve my country. And then when I got out of the Air Force, I moved into the police department to continue to serve my country and my community. When I came here, I decided to continue to serve my country, the county, and community by spending almost 5 years with the Laramie County Sheriff's Department. With that, I was a resident deputy. I rode all 2,600 square miles and got a chance to interact with just about everybody as far as ranchers and a variety of other citizens here. While in the Air Force, I did a couple of items right after September the 11th. I managed mission support contingency operations at Scott Air Force Base in Illinois, at PACAF headquarters in Hawaii, and also Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany. So that's some of the important matters that I've done in my lifetime. And now I have this tremendous opportunity to also serve the state of Wyoming if I'm selected to be Senate District 6 Senator. And one last closing point, I've been with the Laramie County GOP for the past couple of years. I am Senate District 6 Executive Committee member and also precinct committee person for 4-4, which is north of 85. So that's my opening statement. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Barnes. All right, we'll go ahead and start back over this time with Commissioner Thompson.
Mr. Barnes, who do you believe you represent first and foremost? Residents of District 6, the broader interests of Wyoming, your party, specific industries, and how do you resolve to manage conflicts among them?
I work for the people of Wyoming, not just Senate District 6. I would be a senator for everybody in the state of Wyoming. I feel that I'm fairly good at diffusing conflicts because I've had a lot of conflict management training in law enforcement. And I know there's a lot of different viewpoints, dissensions. My job is to listen to everybody and make a determination. Like I always said, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So we have to listen to the citizens. We have to listen to other folks in the legislature, get a variety of your different viewpoints, and then make our determination from there.
Okay. Commissioner Baker.
I got a couple of them, Mr. Barnes. First off, thank you for being here today, and thank you for your service in the military.
Thanks, sir.
Not a lot of people step up and do that anymore. I have a son that took medical retirement from that, so I kind of understand, a little bit about that. But how many budgets have you taken part in your career that we look through all this? I see a lot of accomplishments, but were you ever involved in any of the budgetary processes with that?
Yes, sir. In the St. Louis Police Department, we were responsible for handling our own budgets for our districts. As commander of operational planning, I was responsible, like I said, for a budget there. When I was security manager with the St. Louis Science Center, I had a budget, fairly large budget to handle security there with over 1 million visitors at the Science Center. And then at Nesher Pharmaceutical, where I was security manager, I had a fairly large budget there to make sure we didn't have any diversion of oxy and a variety of other items. And then at Hudson Security, I was the general manager there, where I handled a large budget. So I've had an opportunity also in the military, whether it was Air Mobility Command or, like I said, PACF headquarters or Ramstein, where we were assigned to handle budgetary items over there also, purchasing fire equipment and a variety of things to make sure that contingency operations around the world would continue without any logistical problems.
Okay, and just one more quick short one here. What's your take on this property tax shortfall that our county, took a pretty big whack on with the special districts, especially the general fund and whatnot? What's your take on another 25%, and what do you think that would look like for us going forward?
Well, I think the 25% that we currently have is more than sufficient right now until our economy picks up, which is one of my #1 priorities. We certainly are hoping that the President Trump administration, with coal, oil, natural gas, and the raw earth minerals that we are going to start extracting here soon, will bring in some additional income here, and we'll have to analyze things. I am a fiscal conservative, so I hate to spend money unless, like we say in Missouri, the show me state, unless you can justify that expenditures need to be made or that you need additional appropriations to handle that. Those are the things that I'm going to look at. So, but I think 25% is sufficient for right now.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Barnes, I'm going to ask follow up on that just because, obviously we've read news articles and things with statements from you guys. I wasn't in Guernsey, but I know that you helped with the 50% reduction. You said that you had petitioned or collected petition signatures for the 50% reduction in property taxes. So now that 25 is sufficient in your mind, are you still on board for the voter initiative for the 50%?
Well, I helped collect signatures for that 50%. And I based it on looking at the budget and talking to several individuals that I'm friends with in the Senate and in the legislature right now. And they were able to show me where we could do the reduction. My personal opinion is that every single agency always has wiggle room that they can adjust their budget with. So, but since they passed the 25%, I would be more than willing to just stick at that right now. I don't think there's an additional revenue source that would cover the other 25%.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Thompson?
Can I follow up with that as well? So,
Yes, sir.
so Mr. Barnes, how much of the property tax, and I know Chairman Shockley will get into this a little bit more, but how much of the property tax goes to the state, and where would you have made those cuts in the state?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, sir, so I could not sit here and speculate or even guess at those particular numbers right now. I know there's a variety of different agencies that keep asking for additional money. I know we're looking at maybe a 10 cents increase on gasoline tax. I don't think that's going to go over very well, mainly for the trucking industry, because they'll fuel up in other states and just bypass Wyoming, which is going to reduce that particular tax coming in here. So until I get in there, I know that President Bo Beitman in the Senate probably already has his agenda already set for the budget legislative session coming up. So until I get in there and start talking to folks and looking at what they want to propose, I'm willing to look at all those avenues.
So, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Thompson.
if you don't mind,
No.
and I apologize for this, but I'm kind of curious about this. So the answer is zero. No property tax goes to the state of Wyoming.
Oh, it does, yes. Well, because we went from a $9 billion budget up to $11 billion budget. And certainly I'd like to see all the justification for that additional revenue spending.
So, Mr. Barnes, no property tax goes to the state of Wyoming.
I believe it does, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
But I can't give you that number off the
So-
top of my head. I'm
so-
sorry, sir.
okay, so the budget that you were shown where they could handle a 50% reduction in property tax, what budget was that? The state budget?
Yes, it was the state budget, yes.
Okay.
And so I'm not familiar with City of Cheyenne budget or Laramie County budget without looking at it.
Okay.
Commissioners Wanitzer?
Mr. Barnes, first and foremost, thank you for being here. I appreciate your willingness to step up. I know it's a thankless job being in the limelight here and getting grilled. So thank you for your willingness to step up. So referring back to, I think Chairman Ma mentioned some of the news articles we've read. You've mentioned a few times that you're not a politician, you're a cop. So I guess just in the general sense, I'm very curious about your why. I know you ran for sheriff and now you're interested in this position. Like what draws you to politics?
Well, being in the in law enforcement and the military, they kind of frown upon you being active in politics. You are certainly allowed to vote, but they don't want you being engaged. So once I retired from the sheriff's department here, I looked at the candidates, and we have a chairman here that ran a very strong campaign, and I appreciate his efforts. I decided to go ahead and jump into that as an independent because I truly believe that that should be a nonpartisan position, like a lot of positions here in the city of Cheyenne. So with that, like I said, I decided to let's get involved. I've always been involved in interested in politics. I've got my bachelor's degree in political science from Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville, but I also have a master's degree in business and organizational security management from Webster University. So several people, they were encouraging me to run for sheriff also, but then also I decided, well, let's jump in as precinct committee person. And then I was thankful to be elected as one of the Senate District 6 executive committee members. So I'm kind of new at this. So that's why, like I said, I'm a cop. I'm not a politician.
Sure.
So that's my statement.
Yeah, no worries. I'm kind of in the same boat myself. I don't consider myself a politician, but
Yeah.
here I am, right? So,
Yep.
okay. So sorry, that was just a personal question. I'm sorry to get off on topic. So my actual question there is, do you have one, or can you name one measurable goal or promise that you feel that you can accomplish within the session if you were elected?
Well, I think limited government is my number one priority. I think especially our federal government, where they only have 17 enumerated rights under the Constitution. The rest of it is Amendment 10. It goes back to the states, but the government's got their hands in everything, education, healthcare. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So right now, I am not looking at any particular legislation. Like I said, I want to meet with President Bo Biteman and others and see what their agenda is coming up. And my thing is, I think we've got too many laws on the books. I'd like to reduce some of them, to be honest with you, if they do not help the citizens of Wyoming.
Gotcha. Okay, and then my final question here. When party leadership pressures you to vote against your district interests, what's your decision framework? And then how will you commit to explaining those decisions to your constituents?
Well, I'm a Christian. I don't do things, that the Lord would probably be happy with at times. But my thing is to take a look at it, and my values have never changed. My very first time I voted was for President Reagan. I believe that, like I said, I have not changed, but sometimes the parties have changed. And the thing is, I've been threatened and all kinds of stuff in law enforcement, and I know what my boundaries are. I know not to cross those particular boundaries as far as my character and my integrity is concerned. So I will not be intimidated. I will not be bullied. I will stick by my conservative values, and that's how I will operate if I'm in the Senate.
Gotcha. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Commissioner Heath.
Now, property taxes is a hot issue, and I think a lot of us in this room can speak a lot to it. But I will say that in looking at my property tax assessment, I have yet to see anything that says it goes to the state.
Mhm.
It's all county. The only thing that goes to the state is your school foundation mill levy. The rest of it all goes to the local school districts, county government, and special districts. That being said, there's been a lot of discussion about a replacement for property taxes. Consumption tax has come up, which is a sales tax. What, if anything, if property taxes were to be replaced, what would you suggest?
Well, from what I understand, we would have to have a constitutional amendment to get rid of the property tax and move into the consumption tax. The research that I've done, and there again, I'm not an expert. I would have to do tremendous amount of research and speak to folks, but it seems to me that the middle class and lower class individuals take the brunt when you look at the consumption tax, because they can't truly afford a lot of these particular items. So I would have to study that. I know it's a new topic that's come up here recently. And like I said, I am not an expert in that whole constitutional change of it, or how much the property tax would bring in versus the other taxes. So I would have to take a look at and listen to experts like you that handle local and county budgets and get your input, because I certainly don't make decisions in a vacuum. I try to get as much information as I possibly can before I make a decision. And I know we have spoken before about the property tax, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jolovich? Okay. Chairman Shockley?
Good afternoon. There's been a lot of talk here about property tax. I assume you're a property owner.
Yes.
Can you explain how your taxes are calculated?
Well, for me, it's a little bit different because I do get the tax break for being deployed. I spent almost 3 years over in Iraq and Afghanistan doing contingency operations over there. So I do get the tax deduction from that. I would have to pull up my tax budget and take a look at it and look at all the mill levy taxes. I know LCCC is a big one that gets a lot of our funding here in the county. So I'd have to review the entire property tax budget to sit down with you.
When we're talking about property taxes, we always talk about mills. What is a mill?
Well, and that's it's a very difficult calculation. I understand that most politicians don't even understand it, but we do have experts in the city and county and state that actually handle those particular mill levies. So I'd have to look at and talk to them.
Can you tell me how many mills are levied in your tax district where your property is?
Not offhand, I can't without looking at my property tax.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner
Thanks.
Hogshead.
Yep. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being here, Jeff. That's the same question that I've asked everybody else. What are the top 3 reasons young Wyomingites leave, and what is your policy or plan to?
Well, I think our economy is the number one item. When I was contemplating moving here from St. Louis, we love the wide open spaces, we love the freedom, we love the liberty. But when I started looking at jobs, we don't really pay a whole lot in order to keep young folks here. They could go to other states and get higher paying jobs. Like I mentioned to you, a buddy of mine in the FBI recommended the Sheriff's Department. I applied to that, and thank God I was selected to, serve the citizens here. But we have to look, small business owners employ probably the vast majority of the people in America. So my thing is to support the small businesses in any way we possibly can to move here, to expand here, and to possibly increase the rate of pay that they pay folks without, having a significant reduction in their budget, because they have to make a profit. So that would be my thing, is small businesses in the state of Wyoming, trying to help them out, meet with them, find out what their concerns are and what they can do to expand and hire more people.
Okay, and piggyback on that, you are talking about bringing up wages for jobs and small businesses and such. But with that comes the influx of people. Should that come to fruition, where are we going to house these people with the current rental being around $1,100 a month? How are these people going to be able to afford that right off the bat? You bring these people in, you got to house them. At you as SD6, what would you propose to be able to help local jurisdictions be able to handle that influx and house them?
Well, the 2 big things that's going to impact our community is all the data centers being built here. We may or may not have the knowledge base here. So we're going to have folks coming in from all across the country. I know about a month or so ago, I talked to some young lady that moved here from New York. And she was able to get an apartment for about $1,900 a month here. And we got the Sentinel missile system coming in, which is going to bring a whole lot of folks. And this program is going to probably last for 30 years. So just those 2 industries alone, some of these people may have the money to afford the housing coming in from California or wherever they may, relocate here. I always keep up with Mayor Collins' minutes, talking about meeting with a variety of different companies that come in and brief him that they can do affordable housing here. And I think that's certainly something that we should look at and support, as long as it doesn't impact our, we have to be concerned about our utilities, whether it be electric, gas, whatever it may be. And then we also have to be concerned about the water consumption here. I know the Colorado Basin states, I think they have until maybe October of next year before the federal government steps in. A lot of folks I speak with, the ranchers and them, they're extremely concerned about the aquifer. So all those issues have to be looked at, and they have to make sure that we could sustain those along with the housing.
Thank you.
Your property. Okay. Mr. Barnes, just a couple quick questions. So do you support giving counties more flexibility when it comes to voter approved sales tax options? So here in Laramie County, you're obviously aware, for over 30 years, our residents have supported both the 5th and 6th pennies. In some communities, there's a 7th penny option available. But do you believe in giving local communities more options to control their own destiny in terms of voting and taxes?
Yes, I do, because all politics are local. This is the grassroots right here, whether it be the county commissioners or the city council members. I think you have your finger on the pulse more so than some folks in the legislature or certainly at the federal level. So I would not be opposed to looking and discussing giving more authority and control to local government. Absolutely.
Okay. And then what three sectors beyond our legacy industries of mineral extraction should Wyoming cultivate in the next decade? And what policies can the state enact to help kind of facilitate an investment of private money in Wyoming?
Well, I know the past 4 years under the Biden administration, all of our industries here in Wyoming have been impacted significantly. And that's why I'm glad that the Trump administration's trying to expedite stuff, because a lot of it, when you look at it, is for national security. And it's extremely important that we look at all of our minerals here, because China seems to be gaining on us quickly. Oil, gas, coal, all of those industries need to be looked at. I know there's a lot of people willing to come here because we do have a vast amount of oil and gas and stuff here in the state of Wyoming. Like I said, that's going to benefit our economy tremendously. So I think whatever we can do to bring those industries in. I'm not a big favor of giving tax breaks because, you know, they move here. I don't think the citizens should be funding a lot of these. These are major corporations moving in from Spain and Canada and elsewhere. And if they're that large of corporations, I don't think we should be giving taxpayers money to support these folks.
Okay, so Mr. Barnes, so we'll just pick an exemption and we'll pick the sales tax on data center equipment because it's hot in the, you know, papers right now. So I believe 36 other states offer that exemption. Is your feeling that Wyoming should not offer that same exemption so we can be competitive with those other states?
Well, would have to look at the other, I think there's 35 other states that are really competing for these things. I would like to see what kind of tax breaks that they're giving them and see if we could be competitive with them, but just give carte blanche. Like I said, I think the taxpayers would be a little concerned about us just willy-nilly, but we do need to take a look at, like I said, expanding. I know Bill Gates is a large entrepreneur. Bill Gates has more money than all of us in this room will ever have. So I would have to take a look and see if it would be extremely beneficial. And I think they're going to move here because of our climate. Texas is way too hot, and we have a conducive climate that's going to benefit their operating system. So I think we're in the running for all of it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I heard you say earlier that you would represent the state of Wyoming in the Senate district seat. I take a little bit of issue with that because when I elect somebody to be a senator, I want them to be mean and I want them to be on my side. And so how do you rectify what you said there with your representation of Platte and Laramie County specifically?
Yep. The decisions well, certainly Laramie County and Platte County, those would be my constituents. So those are the individuals I want to listen to their input, gain their knowledge, their experience and everything. But as a Wyoming state senator, I have to be concerned about the entire state, you know, bar none with the nuclear programs coming and stuff. I have to be concerned with every single resident in the state of Wyoming, but knowing that my loyalty rests with Senate District 6.
Fair enough. And a totally different question. How did you come by, you supported the 50% property tax, correct? Yes. How did you make that decision? And what I'm going for there is I'm trying to figure out how you make your decisions and any foresight in that. Mm-hmm. Because the question was very simple and it was a mandate, correct? And now it's up to the Senate and the House to figure out how to do that. Was there any thought into what it actually would do?
Yes. Like I said, there was a committee put together by Brent Bean and a whole variety of other folks throughout the state of Wyoming. It just wasn't one person. Like I said, friends of mine in the Senate, friends of mine in the House, they have scrutinized the budget, and I listened to their input, and they were able to articulate and justify to me that we could have a 50% reduction in property tax.
Okay. Did you consult with anybody who was on the receiving end of that reduction?
Commissioner Heath and I had talked about property taxes briefly. We didn't go into great detail or anything. But no, that would be my thing, is to certainly listen to, like I said, the local folks, city, county, and see what kind of impact it's going to have on them. Because I know, like I said, the last 4 years under the Biden administration with 9% inflation, it had a devastating impact on every single American in this country.
Thank you.
So I want to expand on that last comment. You said, so government isn't inflation proof, right? So when we see everybody's paying more, our employees are paying more for things, we have to pay them more to keep those employees, to provide those services that we're required to provide by the state of Wyoming, because you guys actually in the legislature dictate 95% of what local county government does. We don't have home rule like cities, but 90% of our job is dictated by state statute. And so when we start talking about, certainly there's been an impact on all residents, everybody here, everybody in this room has felt the impact of inflation, so have local governments. And so when we look at a 50% cut where, 17.54 mils out of the 70, or so I looked so your area, you pay 65 mils total for your property taxes. 17 of those, or 25%, are to your local government. The vast majority are to school, the school foundation. But none of them go to the state general fund, not a dollar. So when they say they showed you where they could find this budget difference in the state budget, that's great, but none of that money was theirs to begin with, right? That was all the fire district's money. That was money for bulletproof vests for sheriff's department. That was money for public works equipment and all of those types of things in communities like Platte County. So how now, with the additional knowledge, how will you approach this situation going forward and explaining a change in your position to the folks on that committee that you sat with?
Well, in the St. Louis Police Department, I went 5 years without a pay raise, 5 years. And of course, I was not happy with that, but the budget is the budget. I'm a career law enforcement officer. That didn't impact me whatsoever. I just picked up additional jobs doing secondary work, working for St. Louis Rams, working for the St. Louis Cardinals. People have to tighten their belts. And that's exactly what my wife and I did, sending children to private schools. But I took on additional jobs wherever I possibly could, along with working in the Missouri Air National Guard. Not only just my drill weekend, but there was a lot of additional opportunities, like I said, at Scott Air Force Base and others, that I agreed to go over there and help to bring in additional revenue. So when you look at that, I believe every single agency has some wiggle room. I truly do. And there is a lot of waste and abuse, not only in the federal government, but in state governments and everything else. And everybody needs to take a hard look, because I know everybody wants more. They just want more, and nobody is willing to talk about reducing taxes or anything for the people in the state of Wyoming or across the nation. President Trump is doing that now. He's going to give people a tax break. And I certainly appreciate that. That's going to benefit everybody. So when you look at that, I don't think that we are going to be able to pass another 25% reduction in the property tax. I think that number is firmly set. People are comfortable with that number. So I just don't feel.
But the ballot initiative, the signatures were certified. So it's my belief that'll be on the general election ballot.
Yep.
So now it'll go to all the voters to determine. And certainly, all of us here in this room are serving at the will of the voters. And so if the will of the voters is that, so be it. But I'm asking you now, with the additional knowledge that we've tried to provide in regards to where property tax dollars actually go, compared to what the committee looked at and said, the state's got plenty of money, we can do this, when it wasn't state money to begin with. I'm curious about your conversation you'll have with members of that committee to explain that you're okay now with 25% and with this additional knowledge of property taxes not being state dollars. So that's what I'm seeking to understand.
Okay. Yeah. And like I said, I have not spoken to those folks since the legislation was passed for the 25% reduction. So I had to re-engage with them and find out what their thought patterns are in regards to any additional, taxation or decreases in it. But I feel that they probably heard from the citizens, and they probably would feel comfortable. I know there's a variety of different things, like when we voted on the 6 penny sales tax, the sheriff's department, when I was there, they just asked for an additional $250,000, kind of, in my words, a slush fund to use as needed. And in my personal opinion, that is not justifying money, taxpayers' money. You have to tell me what you're going to use that $250,000 for. And those are the kind of fiscal conservative items that I will certainly look at.
Okay. Anyone have any additional questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Heath.
Yeah, we talk about this 25% decrease that we've already seen in our property taxes and the exemptions from the long-term homeowners exemption that was just recently passed. I know of a fire district, and this is how they describe their budget. It says, we are paying 2026 prices on a 2015 budget. Now, we can't handle or control the federal inflation rate. That we can't do anything about. But we can support our special districts. This is fire protection. And I heard other districts that said the same thing about their budgets. So how can, in anybody's wildest dreams, support a 50% reduction when you're seeing our fire districts already looking at 10-year-old buying power? And I know that this is more of a political statement than it is a question, but it's something that I want you to think about as if you are chosen to be the senator, because one of those fire districts is in our Senate district, and I happen to live in that this Senate district as well.
So I guess to couch that as a question, what activity as a senator could you do, or are you willing to do, to replace lost revenues for local governments and local special districts lost by the property tax initiatives? Because if the state has the money, there is a way, but it has to be a backfill, which was defeated last time in the legislature, specifically in the Senate. And so I guess to that exact point, would you support a state backfill of all property tax cuts to local government and fire districts?
Like I said, with the additional revenue that I believe we're going to bring in over the next 3 years under the Trump administration, with the exploration of our natural resources here. And the fire department is, near and dear to my heart. I retired as Chief Master Sergeant / Fire Chief with the Air Force. So I understand operating with antiquated equipment. I believe that those certainly need to be funded, but I've never in my lifetime seen the voters turn down any tax request from the fire department. I've never seen it happen before, never. And I don't think that will ever happen in my lifetime. So I feel comfortable the fire department will be funded, even if we have to look at additional backfill money. But like I said, I would have to get in with the Senate and start talking to the folks there and scrutinizing the budget.
Okay. Anybody else have any additional questions? Okay, if you want, you can go ahead and wrap up with the closing statement.
Commissioners, I really appreciate it. I know you have a tough job. I've been to a handful of, meetings and look at the agenda that you have to struggle with. And certainly this is a tremendous decision that you have to make to fill Darren Smith's position. I've talked to Darren about things that transpired in the last session in the Senate. I still believe that I would have his ear for advice and consent and recommendations. But you, like I said, have a tremendous opportunity here. I've given you that package just to peruse quickly. I know it's a plethora of information there, but I think I do have the knowledge, skills, and abilities in my 67 years to be able to fill this position and represent the state of Wyoming and the citizens here. Like I said, I want to serve our state, county, and community again. When I retired from the sheriff's department, and one of our commissioners will tell you, when you do leave law enforcement, there's still that ache to get back into the fight, if you will. And I believe this is a great opportunity for me to go ahead and do that. So I appreciate your time and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Okay, before I entertain any motions, just let you know, probably entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session to have a brief deliberation and discussion. No determination will be made in that meeting. And then we will come back out, call the meeting back to order, and we will vote by ballot. Those ballots will be given to the clerks. And I believe the results will be posted over my shoulder. I think they figured that out. So just wanted to give everybody in the audience an update. Pardon? Pardon? Yeah, I would say at the max 30 minutes. 3:30. We will reconvene at 3:30. Okay,
Mr. Chair, I would move to go into executive session for deliberation on this position.
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we stand adjourned until 3:30. All right, welcome back, and I'll call back to order the special joint meeting of the Laramie and Platte County Commission to appoint a replacement for Senate District 6. This time, the clerks will pass out ballots. Those are all right. Doing the cameras and everything. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we have 8 ballots here, and there's 8 commissioners present. First ballot for Laramie County, Taft Love. Second ballot from Laramie County, Taft Love. Third ballot from Laramie County, Taft Love. First ballot from Platte County, Taft Love. Second ballot from Laramie, third ballot from, fourth ballot from Laramie County, right? Taft Love. Next ballot from Platte County, Taft Love. Next ballot from Platte County, Taft Love. Final ballot from Laramie County, Taft Love. So that's all 8 ballots.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Commissioners, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to appoint Taft Love to fill the empty Senate District 6 position.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll just briefly thank all 3 candidates for putting yourselves out there and putting yourself forward. I think everybody up here knows how that feels and goes, and so we're appreciative of your willingness to step up, and congratulations to Mr. Love on the votes for potential appointment, and we will do a roll call, please.
from Laramie County, Commissioner Heath,
Aye.
Commissioner Hollingshead,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Swanitzer,
Aye.
and from Platte County,
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Jolovich,
Aye.
Chairman Shockley.
Aye.
and Chairman Mom, I forgot you.
That's fine. Aye.
Thank you.
All right. With that, the appointment is confirmed. Is there any other additional business to come before us today?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do have the certificate of appointment prepared, and the commissioners will sign it. So if you would remain behind, commissioners, and we will have you sign. And Mr. Love, if you will remain behind, we'll be able to give you the certificate.
Okay. Thank you. With that, we are adjourned.